Hi friends, welcome back to another video. In today's video, I wanted to share a travel vlog and book haul from my recent trip to Korea and Japan. And since I went book shopping there, I thought it would be fun to share some of the things that we got up to, as well as a cute book haul towards the end of the video. So I really hope you enjoy watching this vlog as much as I enjoy putting it together. After 13 hours of flying, my husband and I arrived at Seoul Incheon Airport in South Korea on September 11th. This marked the start of our honeymoon and the beginning of a very adventurous and at times physically demanding 3-week holiday across Korea and Japan. One of the first places that I knew that I wanted to visit in Korea was a Starfield library at the COEX Mall, which you may have seen lots of pictures and videos of on social media. I love that so many people were using the space to actually study and work and not just for photos. And because we visited in the evening, the lights were muted with a soft glow that made the whole place feel so warm and cozy. Inside the shopping centre was a branch of YP or Yongpung Books, which is a major South Korean bookshop chain, and I think that the majority of the bookshops that I ended up visiting in Korea were branches of YP Books. I mentioned briefly in my previous video, but I was utterly enamored by how beautiful all the books were in Korea and Japan. This is such a bookish thing to say, but the texture of the paper of their books were so buttery thick, and from the adorable cover art to the beautifully designed fonts and typography, there was such a high level of detail that really elevated the reading experience. I think my favourite part was seeing the different editions of books that I'd never seen before. It was so much fun seeing how the Korean copies of certain translated texts vary from the British cover designs. Another bookish place that I really wanted to visit was the Sinchon Roasting Library, which is not only a cafe with an incredible view of Seoul, but they also had a library and bookshop next door where lots of people were studying and working. We ordered a croffle and watermelon smoothie, and I remember the watermelon smoothie being the tastiest watermelon flavoured anything that I've ever tried. It was extremely hot in Seoul, with the highest temperatures going up to 36 degrees Celsius or 97 degrees Fahrenheit, and so having fresh sweet watermelon to drink instantly cooled me down and was really refreshing. Of course, bread or bang is so well loved in Korea, and there are lots of bakery cafes everywhere, so we would frequently pop in and try all sorts of yummy treats whenever we were out and about but wanted to eat something quickly. Korean bookshops had adorable stationery dotted everywhere, but what stood out to me the most was that they had lots of Anne of Green Gables merch, but it was an animated version. I never knew that Anne of Green Gables had been animated, and so I went back to the hotel that day to research, and it turns out that the book was adapted and produced in 1979 by Nippon Animation, What's more is that Hayao Miyazaki worked on the scene setting and layout, which is perhaps why the art felt so familiar to me, but I believe that this was before he founded Studio Ghibli. Anyways, I now really want to watch this adapted TV series, and I'm curious to know if any of you have watched it too. We also travelled to Insadong, the heart of Seoul, and a neighbourhood that's bustling with tea houses and artists who practice traditional crafts and arts. It's an area that's preserved Korea's cultural heritage, and so we knew that we wanted to spend some time drinking tea and eating delicious traditional snacks. I ordered an iced pumpkin rice punch tea, and I think that Ian might have ordered the cinnamon punch tea. These are both traditional teas that I adore and drink all the time, but it was even more tasteful drinking it at a tea house. After a couple of days in Seoul, we took a day trip to Chuncheon, which was about an hour's coach ride away and is also the place where Ian's family are from. Korean coaches are one of my favourite modes of transport. I just have a lot of nostalgic childhood memories of taking the coach from Seoul to more rural and suburban areas during summer holidays to see family. So I really enjoyed reading whilst watching the scenery before me transform from the busy city to grand mountains and luscious forests. The day after, we ended up going back to Insadong because we wanted to see more of the neighbourhood, since there were so many wonderful small indie shops, and then we made our way to Seoul Forest, where we honestly had the best time riding these bikes all around the park and even walking through a butterfly garden. This was our last day in Seoul, and we were so sad to leave after only 5 to 6 days. But after spending the latter part of the day with some of our best friends who also happened to be on holiday at the same time, we eventually had to pack our bags to take a week-long trip to Japan. It's always been a dream of mine to visit Japan. I adore Japanese literature and media, and so you can imagine how excited I was to finally be able to visit this country that's inspired me on so many levels. Having read Days at the Borisaki Bookshop and its sequel, More Days at the Borisaki Bookshop, I knew that one of the places that I really wanted to visit in Tokyo was a town called Chimbocho, famously known for being a book town with lots of bookshops and publishing houses. Even the subway station was decorated with books everywhere. In Days at the Borisaki Bookshop, the book takes place in a fictional bookshop in Chimbocho, and it was incredible to be able to experience walking down the streets filled with bookshops, both used and new as described in the books. It was a shame though that it was so hot because Ian and I were both melting, and so we couldn't spend as much time as we wanted to visiting all the different bookshops. But we did end up stopping by at the Bookhouse Cafe, which had lots of children's books and a lovely cafe selling yummy drinks and food. Of the bookshops that we visited, I think this was my favourite, and I ended up buying a few books there as well. I've been trying to learn Japanese by myself for the last few months, and so I thought that starting off with children's literature would be a great way to progress further. But as you can see, everything was just so adorable, and I had a blast seeing what kind of books they were selling. Another place we visited was Shinjuku Kyoen, and although we really wanted to visit some of the other parks in Tokyo, this was the only one that we had time to visit. The park was stunning, and there was a tea room under the shade of some trees that I really wanted to stop by, but unfortunately it was closed by the time we reached it, and so I wasn't able to go there. Additionally, my husband and I, coming from the UK, we're just not accustomed to the heat, and so we had to take frequent breaks indoors, and of course had to have lots of ice cream breaks too. After a few days in Tokyo, we made our way to Kyoto via the Shinkansen bullet train. We'd bought a few snacks from the konbini before, and so I happily munched away at my matcha and tofu donuts whilst taking in the changing scenery outside the window. When we arrived in Kyoto, we just had a moment to take in the completely different scenery before we dropped off our bags at the hotel. It's a bit of a funny story from this point onwards because we initially wanted to visit the Fushimi Inari Shrine, which was supposed to be only like a 15-minute train ride from where our hotel was located. But I ended up leading us onto the wrong train, and we only realised about 10 minutes into the journey that we were on a direct train to Osaka, so we weren't able to get off for an hour. And by the time we got off, it was time for dinner, so we ended up having dinner in Osaka before hopping on a direct train back to Kyoto. Thanks to my mistake, we weren't able to spend too long in Kyoto because we only had 3 days there, I think, in total. But we did manage to take a day trip to Arashiyama, which is home to the bamboo grove. I don't think I can describe how amazing it was to be surrounded by towering bamboo trees and such magnificent nature all around me. It felt like I'd stepped into a Ghibli movie, and it was a delight to be able to spot all the magical cafes and tea rooms that were hidden under the shade of trees and bushes. We spent a long time climbing our way up the Georgia Kochi temple, where we listened to the soundscape of chirping birds and insects and the quiet footsteps of fellow tourists. Visiting Arashiyama was definitely the highlight of my trip to Japan, and it was a place where I felt like I was able to take a bit of a breather after a very hectic few weeks of traveling. I feel like I should also note that we did end up going to the Ghibli Museum in Tokyo. But the reason why there's no footage is because you're not actually allowed to film inside. But that was such a dreamy experience as well, and it was one of the things that was on my bucket list of to do things that really exceeded my expectations. Next on the itinerary was the official trip to Osaka, but since we'd already spent one of our evenings in Osaka when we were supposed to be exploring Kyoto, we decided that we'd stop by Nara on the way to visit the Nara Park, where you can see and greet deer. We bought some deer crackers, and the deer would bow to you to ask for some crackers, which was the cutest thing ever. They were incredibly tame, whereas I don't think you'd want to get too close to the deer at Richmond Park back in the UK. But we felt like there were too many tourists near the front of the park, and so we made our way further in where there were lots more deer and fewer people. But after Osaka, whilst our trip to Japan was sadly over, we did have another week left in Korea, so we hopped on a flight from Osaka Kansai Airport to Busan. This was my first ever time visiting Busan, and so I was enamored by this new side of Korea that I'd never seen before. Busan is a port city known for its beaches and mountains, and I fell in love with the vast expanse of shimmering water. Overall, it probably wasn't your conventional honeymoon, but because we've been dreaming of traveling across these two countries for years, it felt like a dream being able to plunge ourselves into these two cultures. I'm truly grateful to have spent September 2024 seeing, tasting, and exploring new things, and we made so many treasured memories together that we already look back fondly on. Hi friends, I hope you all enjoyed the footage that I put together of us book shopping around Korea and Japan and just sightseeing in general as well. Today I have some lovely warm peach tea with me and I'm so excited because in this portion of the video I really want to be able to showcase some of the books that I bought. I do want to preface so that the books that I'll be showcasing today are all either in Japanese or Korean, and so I know that not a lot of you will be able to read these books, but I did want to show them anyways because I just think the storylines are so beautiful. So I'm just going to put my tea down and bring the books over. So here's my cute little bag. It's actually from a caricature place that we went and we visited with some friends. I thought it'd be cute just to put my books in here on the way back. So first up we have 카페 도도에 오면 마음의 비가 그칩니다, and it's by an author called it's actually a Japanese novel. I didn't realize it was a Japanese novel translated into the Korean, but the author is Shimeno Nagi. Shimeno Nagi. I don't actually know too much about this book other than the cover drew me in, and I just thought it was such a stunning book. If you've watched some of my previous videos, you might know by now that I have this particular love for this very specific genre within Korean and Japanese literature that deals with very mundane things, the very everyday life things, but specifically it's often to do with people who are burnt out in their lives and who try to find joy in different smaller things. But it tends to focus around characters who are very normal, very ordinary, but they're burnt out with their lives and their jobs, and so they try to find new avenues to explore, whether it's starting a cafe or working in a bookshop. And this particular book, or the title sort of translates into, if you come to Cafe Todo, the rain in your heart will stop. And I think it's sort of expressing like the sadness or the struggles that you're feeling with in your heart, the sorrows will be at ease. And so that title immediately drew me in and had all my attention alongside this gorgeous cover. I mean, it's just beautiful. And so I'm hoping that I'll find that particular calmness and tranquility that I tend to find when reading books like this. Next up we have 바다가 들리는 편의점. This is another book that's been translated into Korean from the Japanese, and it's by Achida Sonoko. The title roughly translates into the convenience where you can hear the sea. Japanese and Korean novels just have the cutest covers. They're so beautifully illustrated. I'm expecting that there will be a lot of wholesome moments and exchanges between customers and those who are working, the employees at the convenience shop, and also the setting I think is going to be so lovely and peaceful. It's set by the seaside, and so I'm hoping that there will be some lovely atmospheric writing as well. Next up we have 어서 오세요 휴남동 서점입니다, and it's actually Welcome to the Hyunamdong bookshop, but in the original Korean novel. This is of course the book that I've just talked about so much on my channel this year, and it's such a wonderful story. If you haven't picked it up already, I really suggest picking it up because it has such a sweet premise. If you enjoy quiet tales that explore different character relationships, but also is set in a cafe bookshop, then I think you'd really enjoy it. It follows a woman who is burnt out from her job, her work, and so she decides to quit her job and to really take the plunge and open a bookshop. You know, business is slow at first, but as time passes and as more and more people from the community are able to see the impact that this bookshop is having on their lives and in the surrounding community, you get to see a wonderful array of characters and bonding, but also how important it is to have a bookshop. And one of the best things about this novel, and the reason why I can recommend it to you, is because it's been translated into English, and so I think there is no reason not to pick this book up. I love that more and more books are being translated into English so that a wider audience, a global audience, can enjoy these stories as well. Next up are two books that I picked up from a Japanese children's bookshop, and it was one of the loveliest cafe bookshops that I've ever been to. And I love seeing how things were displayed there particularly. But I picked up a Japanese translation of The Wind in the Willows, and also another book that I just thought was really cute for spooky season. I'm trying to learn Japanese, and I still haven't mastered all three alphabets. I only know hiragana and katakana so far, so I have a long way to go. But what I do appreciate is when it comes to children's books anyways, a lot of the kanji that is used is often rewritten in hiragana and stuff, so I should be able to read it at the very least, even if I don't understand everything. The Wind in the Willows is obviously one of my all-time favourite classics and children's classics, and so I was really excited to see a Japanese translation of it. I'm not sure whether this is an abridged version or not, but either way, the illustrations are beautiful, and I'll show close-ups of it later as well, because I mean, it's just stunning. And this other book, which is the last book of the haul actually, I have no idea what it's about, but it looks so cute. I just really wanted it because when I went it was September, and I was hoping that for spooky season in October and November I'd be able to just really enjoy this little boy with a ghost. Because it's sort of in like a comic style as well, a lot of these illustrations I was hoping would really keep me engaged. I have no idea what it's about, but I'm very intrigued to find out what it's about. Anyway, I think that's the end of this video. I hope you really enjoyed it. I think there's something so special about being able to read books in other languages. It really works a different side of my brain and opens me up to different ways that people think and write, and the different expressions that other languages have that aren't accessible in English. It makes me so happy being able to see the different books, the 5 books that I was able to get as souvenirs from Korea and Japan. It's just one of my favourite ways to get collect souvenirs from different countries that I travel to. I'd love to know which books you're reading in the comments below, and I feel like I've been rambling for ages now, so I think I'll sign off here. But I hope you really enjoy the video, and I hope you're safe and well.